Imagine living on government assistance with a child to raise, writing a book in a cafe because it was too cold to write at home. Now imagine 12 publishers, one after another, all rejecting you. This isn't a made-up story. It's the real life of a woman who refused to give up and turned despair into the most successful fantasy empire in the world. This is the story of J.K. Rowling, and today we'll discover how she used her deepest failures to create Harry Potter and become a billionaire. Before her name became synonymous with the wizarding world, Joanne Rowling was a simple woman struggling to get by. After university, she worked for Amnesty International. Her marriage to a Portuguese journalist fell apart, leaving her with her baby daughter, Jessica. In 1993, she returned to Scotland to be closer to her sister Dee. Rowling was jobless and broke. She moved into a tiny flat, living on government benefits of about £70 a week. Her life seemed hopeless, but she didn't give up. The despair, poverty, and depression she battled became her secret sources of inspiration. It was the moment she realized she had nothing left to lose, which gave her the freedom to create. In 1990, during a 4-hour train delay from Manchester to London, Joanne first imagined a boy wizard heading to a school of magic. The image of Harry Potter appeared in her mind fully formed. She didn't have a pen to write down her ideas. It was then that she realized the story had to be written. After moving to Scotland in 1994, she spent hours writing in local cafes where it was warm. One of her favorite spots was the Elephant House in Edinburgh. She drank tea while Jessica slept in a stroller nearby. Rowling wrote without a thought for the cold or hunger. Every paragraph, every word, every page was filled with her despair, but also with hope. Living on the edge of poverty was a constant struggle. During this period, she was diagnosed with depression. Her experience became the basis for the Dementors, the soul-sucking creatures in the world of Harry Potter. She used her deepest fears to create the most terrifying characters, which made her story incredibly authentic. Rowling wrote by hand, filling notebooks with pages. She knew she wasn't just writing a book. She was building a world. Her struggle was hidden, but it contained a power that could move mountains. She didn't know if she would ever publish her book, but she believed in her story. She couldn't give it up because it was her salvation. When the first Harry Potter book was finished, J.K. Rowling faced a new challenge: how to find an agent who would take on the manuscript. At the time, she had 90,000 words typed on an old manual typewriter. Rowling knew nothing about the publishing business, so she sent the manuscript to 2 agents she found in a book. Both turned her down. She decided to try again. This time, she sent her manuscript to an agent named Christopher Little. To her surprise, he quickly replied that he liked the first part but thought the book was too long for children's literature. Despite this, he decided to represent her. It was the first step toward her success, but there was a very long way to go. Christopher Little began sending the manuscript to publishers, and the answer was always the same: rejection. Publishers said the book was too long. Children's literature wasn't selling as well as it used to, and the plot was too complex for young readers. One publisher even advised her to get a job and stop writing children's books. Each rejection letter contained a short, cold verdict. But Rowling didn't give up. She saved every letter, every rejection, and it gave her strength. She couldn't allow herself to be defeated, because this story wasn't just work. It was her life, her hope for the future. The manuscript went around to almost every major publisher in London. When it seemed that all hope was lost, Christopher Little sent the manuscript to a small publishing house called Bloomsbury Publishing. They replied that their editor would like to read the first 3 chapters. Rowling felt that this was her last chance. The story that became a legend happened when the head of the publishing house, Barry Cunningham, gave the first chapters to his 8-year-old daughter, Alice. She read them in a matter of hours and was impatiently demanding more. It was at that moment he realized that this book had something special, something that could change the world. The call that changed everything came from the editor at Bloomsbury Publishing, Barry Cunningham. He informed her that the publishing house was ready to publish the manuscript for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This news was an incredible surprise for J.K. Rowling. She received an advance of £2,500, which was a small sum at the time. Bloomsbury had doubts about the book's commercial success, so the initial print run was a paltry 1,000 copies. Of those, 500 were intended for libraries. At that time, no one could have imagined that this small batch of books would be the start of one of the most successful stories in the world. The book came out in the summer of 1997. At first, it didn't cause a huge stir, but the reviews were positive. It started receiving small but important awards which drew attention to it. In 1998, the manuscript was put up for auction in the United States, where Scholastic Corporation bought the rights to publish it for $105,000. This was the first major success for Rowling. Thanks to this sale, Rowling was finally able to leave survival mode behind and focus on her craft. She moved into her own house and started writing full-time, without worrying about where to find the money to pay the bills. It was a turning point that allowed her to unlock her full potential. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone came out in 1997. J.K. Rowling's life didn't change overnight. She still lived in the same small, modest flat in Edinburgh. Her income was still dependent on government assistance. Her £2,500 advance was a colossal sum for her, but it didn't make her rich. This success was just the first glimmer, the first step on the path from poverty to prosperity. She continued writing in the same cafes where she had started, and no one knew that she was already the author of a book that was about to change the world. The first positive reviews started coming in. The book won the prestigious Smarties Book Prize, which gave it authority in the eyes of critics. In 1998, the American publisher Scholastic bought the rights to her book for a record sum of $105,000. This was the pivotal moment that allowed her to finally get off government assistance and fully dedicate herself to her writing career. She moved into a new, more spacious apartment, but her creative struggle was just beginning. With the writing of the second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, a huge psychological burden began to weigh on Rowling. She was no longer just an unknown author, but a writer from whom a sequel was expected. The pressure from the publisher, the expectations of her readers, and most importantly, her own fears became the main challenges. She wrote in a state of anxiety, afraid that the second book wouldn't be as good as the first. Rowling felt that she had to outdo herself, which is an impossible task for any writer. Every paragraph, every page was a great effort for her, because she knew that readers would judge her based on the first book. Her life had already changed. She was financially secure, but psychologically she was on the edge. It was another form of poverty, a poverty of mental peace. She wrote during the day when her daughter was at nursery, and then continued in the evening. Her manuscript, which was once her salvation, now became a source of her anxiety. Despite this, she didn't give up. She remembered that this story was her life, and she couldn't abandon it. After the first 2 books came out, Harry Potter was no longer just a book. It became a phenomenon that gained widespread publicity. With the release of the third book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, in July 1999, J.K. Rowling officially transformed from a successful author into a global star. This book was the first to top the bestseller lists immediately after its release. Unlike previous editions, which slowly gained popularity, Prisoner of Azkaban became a commercial success from day one. The reaction from readers was extraordinary. Long lines of children and adults formed outside bookstores to get the new book. Critics were captivated by how the story had become more mature and the characters more complex. Newspapers wrote about the Pottermania that had swept Britain and other countries, and people who had never been interested in books before now couldn't put down the wizarding world. During this period, Rowling's life changed forever. She was hounded by paparazzi. Journalists tried to intrude into her personal life. To protect herself and her daughter, she moved to a new, more private home. Instead of enjoying her fame, she felt trapped. At this time, she admitted that she sometimes felt she was living someone else's life. When Rowling began working on the sixth book, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, in 2003, she was no longer just an author but a media phenomenon. Journalists followed her every move. Fans around the world lived in anticipation, and publishers made incredible efforts to keep the book a secret. The writing process was particularly difficult for her. The death of Professor Dumbledore, which she had planned since the beginning of the series, was an emotional ordeal for her. She admitted to writing the scene with tears in her eyes, as she felt she was not just killing a character but ending an important chapter in the story. Rowling wrote at home, surrounded by her family, but psychologically she was alone with her characters and their destinies. The book's release in July 2005 was an unprecedented event. 6.9 million copies were sold in the U.S. in the first 24 hours. This was an absolute record. People camped out in front of bookstores to be the first to get their copy. Thousands of spoilers appeared on the internet, trying to reveal the plot. The reaction from readers was extraordinary. They were captivated by how the story became darker and more mature. Dumbledore's death shocked millions of fans around the world. The next 2 years were a period of the greatest secrecy in the history of the publishing industry. Rowling wrote the final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, knowing she was ending an era. Publishers made colossal efforts to prevent information leaks. The books were printed under strict secrecy. The book's release in July 2007 was the final chord. On the first day, 11 million copies were sold. It was not just a book release but a global event. Fans held mass parties, celebrating the conclusion of the story. The reaction was emotional. People cried, rejoiced, and laughed, discussing every plot twist. For Rowling herself, it was a moment of liberation. After 17 years of writing, she had finally finished the story that changed her life and the lives of millions. She felt both joy and sadness. She had completed her main work, but at the same time she said goodbye to the world she had created. While the global Harry Potter empire was booming, J.K. Rowling found her own peace. In 2001, a few years after the triumphant release of the first books, she married a doctor, Neil Murray. This marriage, unlike her first, became a true haven for her, allowing her to find a balance between her public life and her private happiness. Rowling has 3 children. Her eldest daughter, Jessica, was born in 1993 from her first marriage. After marrying Neil Murray, she had 2 more children, a son, David, in 2003, and a daughter, Mackenzie, in 2005. Despite their mother's immense popularity, Rowling's children live private lives. The family resides mainly in Edinburgh, Scotland, where Rowling wrote most of her books, although she also owns properties elsewhere. After finishing the Harry Potter saga, Rowling did not stop writing. She explored other genres and styles to prove to herself and the world that her talent extended beyond fantasy. In 2012, she published the adult novel The Casual Vacancy, and from 2013, she began writing the Cormoran Strike detective series under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith. These books received critical acclaim, and she is now a recognized author in both genres. In addition to her literary work, J.K. Rowling is an active philanthropist. Her charitable activities are an important part of her life. She founded the Lumos charity, which advocates for the rights of children living in orphanages and helps them reunite with their families. Her own experiences with poverty motivated her to use her success to help others. Today, she leads a quiet but fulfilling life. She continues to write, engages in philanthropy, and lives surrounded by her family. Rowling is an example that true success is not just about money and fame, but also about the ability to live by your own rules, be true to yourself, and help those in need. J.K. Rowling's story is not just a tale of how a writer became a billionaire. It is a powerful lesson about the strength of believing in yourself, even when the whole world tells you no. The 12 rejections she received didn't break her. They gave her time to refine the manuscript, find the right publisher, and most importantly, become the woman she is today. She showed that success doesn't come overnight. It is the result of hard work, resilience in the face of defeat, and the courage to live by your own rules. Her legacy is not just millions of books sold, but the hope she gave to those who are following their dreams. Now we want to hear from you. What part of J.K. Rowling's story inspired you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new stories that help you learn English. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.